morning and welcome to the Pitchlight Chronicles. I am Uncle Tats. I am here as always with Donald and Rob, and I just want to give you guys a quick thank you for holding down the fort on Monday when while I was out and about, and I appreciate the Father's Day shout as well. It's always appreciated that we keep treating each other like family. And the one thing that I learned from watching that show, you don't need me. I can be quiet and the channel will survive.
We did this for you, my guy. We did it for you. There'd be no Pinstripe Chronicles without the Tats.
It's very true.
It's been a long stretch where there's really hasn't been anything to really rally around with the Yankees. And the one thing that I was really curious about, we saw the last time Bader returned and the energy that the team took on with it. And it really was rinse and repeat last night. Even if it's, it was only one game from his return, but I saw a different energy on the field. I don't know if you guys did as well. You were able to see that they were, Rizzo had a great night. Stanton is still trying. He just looks so stiff at the plate. Stanton's starting to really concern me.
Yeah.
You're starting to see, more, I want to say, comfortable at bats with Volpe. Even though he's, the batting average isn't where we want it to be, he's looking comfortable. Bader looked very comfortable at the plate. I think those 2 extra games that he took in the rehab assignment paid off. There are a few defensive plays where he had to really, turn his legs up and really run, and it was flawless. I thought that he really he waited. Those 2 days really paid off for him. But when you come out with a win, because after really being embarrassed by Boston, how did you guys see what I saw as far as the team look more comfortable, more confident that they had one of their key components to that order back in?
They still couldn't score past the second inning. We still can't put up a good amount of runs, even with Bader, although his defense was certainly nice to see because we've been going so long without a competent defender. But, Rizzo had a good night. Bader looked fine. Volpe had a hit, but it's still we're very lucky that Garrett Cole was pitching that game. Had that been Domingo Germán or Sevy or anybody else, really, might not win that game. So I still think we need to make the 2 moves that we've been talking about for weeks now and get a couple of fresh bats up here because Donaldson, and this is right after Cashman said he needs more at bats and all that stuff. And I don't want to come on here and start being negative because we did win a game finally, but I'm still very concerned about this offense. They can't produce consistent runs. They scored in the first. Rizzo had a big hit. McKinney hit the home run. Then what happened? Nothing. So
same old. Well, yeah. That's why I'm really highlighting the pitching and the title and all that. But no, and I'm not trying to say that everything is corrected. But it just had a different feel yesterday. Is really what I'm trying to work around here. Donald, what do you think?
I attribute it mostly to Garrett Cole. Yeah. When you have Garrett Cole pitching basically 8 innings of phenomenal ball, you'd be surprised at how competent a team can look. But really, when you look at it, still only scored 3 runs. And it was because of Rizzo and McKinney. That was really it. So good to see Bader back. Bader will provide energy. He will actually provide someone that can catch the ball in the outfield, which is unheard of as a Yankee fan at the moment, because every pop up and fly ball hit in the general vicinity of our outfielders have been dropped ever since Bader and Judge have been hurt. So obviously this is going to be an improvement, but I'm sorry, you're not going to sell me that this thing's magically fixed. But the win was attributed to Garrett Cole. That's it. Long and short, that simple. Nothing else was particularly competent other than the pitching. Defense wasn't, and the offense certainly wasn't.
No, I'm not trying to paint this picture. Like I say, I'm not trying to say everything was, magically Beta's back, everything is fine. But when you look at what how this team was playing last week, you can see a little bit of life in the team. Now, there's still a lot of life left to get it back in, but it just came off that the team had a different level of approach at the plate. The results were still the same, but it looked like they were trying to be a little more patient. They weren't really going outside of their game plan. It just a lot of that bats didn't go their way, or like I said, Stanton's been a problem. Donaldson's been a problem. And we've been a big Stanton defender for a long time. I'm starting to get that feeling that the more that they keep Stanton off the field, the longer it's going to take for him to get back into his swing at the plate. I think that's the missing piece with Stanton is he's not staying loose when he's playing the outfield. He has said over and over again, the more that I play the outfield, the more that I'm engaged in the game, the looser I feel, the better I feel.
Yeah, let's get into Stanton. Mechanically, obviously, there's something with his swing.
Yeah.
And he looks tremendously lost. Let's start with Rob. Is there anything particularly that you're seeing with his swing that he could improve on?
I mean, like he's always bad off the IL. I mean, this has been a 2-week span now, but he just looks like he's trying to hit the home run, which obviously he knows he can do that by accident, just by hitting the ball. But he's not even making contact. He's looking at strike three now. Like he was swinging and missing all day a few nights ago, but now he's just taking pitches and getting called out. It looks like he's going through spring training at bats. Like he's just trying to see the ball. And we're in June now. We really can't afford that. We need one of our best hitters to start hitting the ball over the wall again. That's what we need him to do. That's why he's getting paid the big bucks. So it looks like his swing is off. Looks like he's not seeing the ball well. And I do think he needs to start playing the outfield so he can just keep himself engaged. Like Tatch just said, that word engaged is so important because if he's sitting in the dugout for 2-3 innings waiting for his next at-bat, he's going to be thinking about that at-bat the whole time. Where if he's on the field, he's like, okay, I got to keep my mind on moving in the outfield and catching the ball or whatever it may be that he's got to do. They got to get him in the field. And I know they said that maybe in this series they can do that. But swing-wise, he still looks like he's doing what he usually does because he strikes out a ton. He's striking out right now, but he's just not getting those big hits in between the strikeouts. That's what when we look at Giancarlo Stanton, we know he's going to strike out. But it's what he does in between those strikeouts. He might hit you 2-3 home runs. Or let's say he goes in a 3-game stretch. He has like 3 hits out of 12 at-bats. A lot of those are going to be strikeouts, but he might have 3 home runs or 2 homers and a double. And you're like, all right, that's not the best thing in the world, but it's better. But we need more of that. We need the power to come back for Stanton.
What about you, Tats? What do you think?
I think I think Stanton needs to stop trying to replace Judge and just play Stanton's game. I think it is attributed to him not playing the field. He's trying to be the offensive hero every at bat. Where to Rob's point, he could have a check swing and hit a home run. Like that's just the power that he has. That's a natural ability. Locking him up on the bench is not doing him any service whatsoever, especially when the lineup takes so long to turn over again because we're not having extended innings. So it's not like he's getting 5 at-bats a game where you might get that late inning spark because now he's loosened up a little bit. He's just sitting there for 3 at-bats, and that's it. That is not going to get him where we need him to be at all. And you're wasting him, and I think a big point of it was I think that the Yankees, the organization has gotten to this point where they have brainwashed the fan base so bad that he cannot play the field that they have put no value on his ability at all. I think that's a big problem. All right. We've been trying to reverse the brainwashing and saying, hey, keep him loose, keep him on the field. The at bats will be there. When you take away a component of a baseball player's game where they're loose and they're comfortable, then then he's had no problem. That first year he came over, he had struggled a little bit. Judge had gotten hurt. Who was our outfielder? And who was on that hot streak that carried the team while Judge was hurt? It was Stanton.
Big G.
And all of a sudden they're like, no, that formula is successful because he had one injury running a base where he had the tight hamstring. The defense is not his problem. It really isn't. I'm tired of that narrative. And it's time to reverse the narrative that Stanton is a wasted contract. We need to stand up as fans and say, hey, put him in the outfield, keep him loose. That's going to help him long term, and it's going to help the Yankees long term because we still have no window of when Judge is coming back. We need that power bat to be activated.
But they're terrified of Stanton's legs. They're terrified of it. They're terrified of putting him out in the field and risking him getting hurt again. And then them really being up shit's creek without a paddle. So they're obviously wrapping him up in bubble wrap and sending him out for three at-bats a game and just hoping that he's going to get himself hot. But they are genuinely terrified of Stanton's legs. That's the long and the short of it. And they're even more terrified because they have no other options. If they did play Stanton in the outfield and Stanton pulls a hamstring, they're done. They're pretty much done now, but they're done completely. So that's why they're wrapping them up in bubble wrap. But listen, do I agree with it? No, because statistically, Stanton is a much better player when he's out in the field. He said it himself, and no one knows their bodies better than the player himself. So I would defer to Stanton. If Stanton says he's ready to play the outfield, then I would trust to put him in the outfield. I don't think he'd be any worse than what we're sending out there. But the facts are they're terrified of getting Stanton hurt again. But I think they rushed him back. They rushed him back in order to fill a need. And they're obviously working him back slowly while he's playing. And so the results are much worse than they really should be. I think if they gave him the time to rehab properly in AAA, he wouldn't be struggling this much. But holy God, his at-bats are terrible. We're talking about a sub 200 hitter right now. It's a startling decline. This is a guy who, even as soon as halfway through last year, he was an all-star. Every time he had a good at-bat, the ball was going hurtling into the stratosphere. And it's just these injuries post All-Star break last year and now this year. And he's not even a tenth of the player he was, even halfway through last year. I don't know what is going on with that. It is bizarre. It is really, really crazy. But now we also have to look at Josh Donaldson. And we're talking about a guy who's batting 150. And that's even he's much worse than Stanton. Like, he's not even competitive. What's going on with Josh Donaldson? Why can't he hit a fastball?
He sucks. He's old. He's past his prime. He's overpaid. He needs to go. I mean, you would have think of all days that maybe he would have a good night right after Brian Cashman talks him up. A lot of the times, struggling players tend to let that spark them a little bit. Because it happened before when Cashman said, hey, don't count us out. And then we got healthy and the team went on a nice run in May. And I was thinking this is probably why he's talking, because he wants to try to light a fire under these guys again in any way he can. But then he goes ahead and gives us that bull crap that Josh Donaldson's a good hitter and he needs at bats and all this stuff. We saw it last year. The guy is not what he once was. And you have a kid sitting in the minors that can play third base And Brian, they said that he needs to finish his development. What else does he need to do? He's played third fine. He's played short fine. He's played second fine. He's hitting the ball like a madman. What development does he need that he can't develop in the major league at the major league level? Because this is what he needs to be doing. He needs to be developing at the major league level. Josh Donaldson is showing you exactly what he is. He's a past his prime, washed up, decent glove at third base. It's all he is. If there was a designated fielder spot, you can use Josh Donaldson, but there's not. Having his bat in the lineup is an absolute detriment to this team because when you have a struggling Stanton, you have a struggling Donaldson, you have a struggling LeMahieu. Up until last night, Rizzo was ice cold. You have too many guys that are getting paid big money that are struggling at the exact same time. That's how you score 2-3 runs a game. Josh Donaldson does not need to be here anymore. There's nothing more he can do. Now, obviously, if he were to leave and go do what Aaron Hicks is doing in Baltimore, then it'd be more proof that the Yankees hitting system is completely flawed. And I think that's what they're afraid of. As if they let another player go that everyone wants to see go, and if he leaves and goes to, let's say, I don't know, Arizona or something, or Minnesota, goes back to Minnesota and starts hitting freaking laser shots like he was 2 years ago, then people will be like, see, the Yankees have an issue with their whole entire their whole philosophy is just flawed. I kind of think that's what they're afraid of because Aaron Hicks is hitting like a madman right now in Baltimore, and he couldn't hit for us. Like he looked like a single A player. He looked like a guy that was coming over from the golf course. I think I can do this, and now he looks like a major league hitter again. And it happened in a snap of a finger. I think that's what they're afraid of. If Donaldson leaves, is he going to start doing that again? Because 2 years ago, he wasn't a great hitter, but he was a good enough hitter. He was hitting the ball hard. He hit the ball for power. He was a better hitter than Gio Urshela. And that's why I said at the time of the trade, he technically was an upgrade, but it wasn't a needed upgrade. And now he looks lost, completely just like he looks like he doesn't belong anymore. And I think they're afraid that if he does leave, he's going to start looking like he belongs again. And everyone's going to start questioning the Yankees' philosophy of how do you go about hitting the ball, because they're doing it with Aaron Hicks right now. How come you can go from so bad to so good so quickly? What are they doing in Baltimore that they're not doing in New York? And I don't think Cashman wants to answer those questions.
Well, that's a great point. And I was reading a New York Post article, and there's some scouts that are watching Anthony Volpe, and a huge Volpe admirers that are these scouts. And they're saying that he probably should be sent down to AAA because they're seeing something very concerning with his swing. One guy in particularly said that his hips are far too open and that the only pitches that he can hit are inside pitches. Pitches low and inside are those the only things that he can actually hit right now because his hips are far too open and his swing is far too uppercut. And that means that any high fastball, as you saw against Boston, and any fastball outside or any pitch towards the outside of the plate, he's missing every single time, 100% of the time. And so these scouts are saying, I'm quite concerned that he's being told to swing with this kind of uppercut, and it's leaving his hips far too open. And one guy even said, he swung from his behind against Boston. It was a wild swing, and he says, I'm very concerned by it because I'm a huge fan of him, and I think he's going to be excellent. That's what one of the scouts say. But so it does once again speak to a belief around baseball that the Yankees aren't coaching these guys properly. That there is obviously a fundamental issue with the way that these Yankees are swinging the bats. It is more than a coincidence that every single player right now is struggling for the Yankees. I mean, you look at that. I mean, no one's got a batting average in the 270s. If you've had for anyone that's got like a significant number of at bats, not like discounting like McKinney, etc., but dudes that have had regular at bats, unless you're Aaron Judge, none of them are batting in the 270s. None of them even batting in the 260s apart from Bader. Like it's a shock. And it really speaks to the fact that I think the Yankee hitting philosophy is completely ruined right now. I think it's not just Dylan Lawson. Dylan Lawson's terrible, but I think this is a Yankee philosophy thing. This is an analytics thing. This is a front office thing, because everyone was ganging up on Marcus Timms. Everyone was saying, "Oh, Marcus Timms is terrible. Marcus Timms got to go. he's an awful coach, right? Well, it never changed anything. In fact, it's going worse, 100 times worse, actually.
Did it with
Right?
Kevin Long too.
And Kevin Long, who's actually a legitimately very good coach because he's made a significant career as a hitting coach around baseball. So maybe the problem is actually the Yankees front office philosophy. And I've been saying it all along. I think everyone's got this uppercut swing out of their shoes, and they're doing it 1-2 strikes, and it's leading to a crazy amount of strikeouts. And there's no excuse for Anthony Volpe to be amongst the league leaders in strikeouts right now. None, because he's got a very good swing.
You know what I find interesting? I'm sorry to cut you off, but with Aaron Judge, he can do it because he's so damn big that he can reach those pitches low. It's like maybe they're trying to do it like, well, if Judge does it and extra work for everybody. But you look at Volpe, he's like half the size of Aaron Judge, essentially. Like he's not going to be able to uppercut anything. Like that's unfair to the kid. So it's and to your about the batting averages, Rizzo just hit 270 last night. So now we have two players that are above 260, which again, not good when you only have two players that are hitting above. Batting average still matters to a degree in this league because it does tell you a story. But it feels like this started when Aaron Judge had that big year in 2017, and all of a sudden everybody just started conveniently started going with this uppercut swing. Like Greg Bird, despite the injuries, had a really good swing in the minors, and then he came to the major leagues and couldn't really hit. And he had a good – remember he came up, I think it was 2015 for the first time, and he started hitting the ball, but then he got hurt. When we saw him again, his swing was different. You know, we've seen it with Gary Sanchez. His swing's different. Torres, his swing is different. Even Stanton, his swing is different. Like, again, we've been saying this for a long time, and a lot of people that do podcasts and a lot of the fans that are talking about it say it. This team is so flawed, and it's coming from the top. It's coming from what they want the team to do. So it is an absolute joke that we are still trying the same thing that doesn't work for all these years. And I think it's because Judge is so successful at it, but he's also 6'7". I think his height has a
He's
big
also a generational player.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's actually got his own coaches. I don't even think he pays attention to Dylan Lawson.
Probably not, because you saw him in the offseason before last year. He was doing something. I forgot what the place is called, but he said, I'm hitting 50 this year. Because he did something with his swing. And what did he do? He hit 62. So maybe he should be the damn hitting coach.
Yep. No, it's Judges, when it comes to like the launch angle statistics, and if you swing on an uppercut, the probability of getting the ball out of the park, Judge is the unicorn for that. Right? It's just natural for him. Same thing with Stanton when he's right. Their power alone is going to have the ball go further. Having everybody else adjust to that swing because Judge is so freaking good at it, and also Judge's approach at the plate. He's also, you saw last year, he was laying off those sliders down in the dirt, where he's not, he'd rather take the strikeout than just swing out of the zone, because he's going to take that 50-50 chance of him getting the call in the zone, on the edge. Just because of his size, he's got a very unique strike zone, and umpires haven't caught up to that yet. But
yeah, I mean the guy's 31. Like, when are they ever going to catch up to it?
They're not going to catch up to it.
Exactly.
I'm sure that if you really go through the film, you'll see guys like Altuve. Those high fastballs that are hitting the zone are called for a ball because chest level on the catcher and crouched down is chin level for Altuve. So, he's not going to get those, there are players because of their size, they're going to have a different zone. And umpires' eyes have, it's, I would imagine, it's really not as easy as we think it is to adjust to that. But I also think that the issue is more with the coaching than the players' approach. But at the same time, the other side of that coin is the hitters need to recognize that, all right, if they're telling me it's not working, I'm going to go back to the approach that got me to where I am and just do my own thing. Because we've heard multiple people say, when you get to the major leagues, the hitting coach, the pitching coach, they're not going to be telling you anything new that you had never been taught before. They're not going to be able to just say, hey, you really need to, your hands are just an inch too low on the bat. You got to, they're not going to pick up on that shit. It's up to the players also to readjust themselves without waiting for the guidance of the coaching staff.
Yeah, well, some players, like I know Rizzo's going to get out of this slump, and he had a good start last night. I don't know when it's going to happen, but eventually Giancarlo Stanton will start hitting again because he's not going to just be this awful player for the next 4 years that we have him. He's going to start hitting bombs again. It's just a matter of when, not if. But guys like Bowers, we really going to rely on him to do too much. Can Gleyber Torres really become consistent because he goes hot, then he goes cold, and it happens like really quick, like a flip of a switch. I think where he is right now is the kind of hitter that he is, which is fine. But DJ LeMahieu's swing is completely broken. And I don't have an answer for that. His swing is nothing like it was a couple of years ago. Is it the toe? Is he trying to make sure he doesn't have that happen again? Is he being too cautious that maybe he lands one way, it might re-aggravate the injury? They say he's 100%, but it clearly doesn't look like it. So, the good hitters that you have, you don't really have to tell them too much because Rizzo's been around for too long, and so is Stanton. They know they're going to fix it. But this is more about young players because look at what happened to Gary Sanchez when this new regime took over. 2016, 2017, you couldn't get him out. And no one gave a crap about his few pass balls behind the plate because he was murdering the ball. And then what happened when 2018 came around, his average dipped. He was like a 230 hitter. Even though he was still hitting for power, he got hurt. 2019, same thing. He was hitting for power, but the average was much lower than what we usually see. Everything else was different. Gleyber Torres came up, and he was a 20 home run hitter, but he was a better overall hitter. And then he just went to a power-oriented swing the next year with the juice ball, and it changed him. Look at Clint Frazier, legendary bat speed. Never got to really use it, though, did he? Because they changed it. What got him to be your number one prospect when we picked him up? We didn't use him, first of all. And then when they got here, they dicked him around too much when it comes to the way he's swinging the bat. And it's with the young players. That's why, as much as I want to see Peraza up here, and I want to see Florial too, I'm afraid of what they're going to do because we're seeing it with Volpe. This kid was ready.
Yep.
And look at Peraza. He's ready.
They're yankifying Volpe big time.
Yankify him, yeah. So what happens if Peraza comes up here and he's hitting like 180 like he was earlier on this season? I'm afraid of these kids because we have so many good hitting prospects that are coming up sooner than later. Dominguez, Pereira's on that cusp as well. They're not ready, but they're going to be close. Spencer Jones is going to be ready in a couple of years. You look at guys in the Chaparro's been bad, but lately. But you have other kids that are coming up that are hitting the ball pretty well. And if we do ever see these guys, Trey Sweeney even, what's going to happen when they reach the major league level? Because we still got 4 more years of Cashman at the helm. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen when we see these guys? Because we know Dominguez is coming next year, maybe even this year if he heats up again. We know Jones is soon to follow. Pereira could be, whether he's traded or not, but Sweeney's on the come up. We have a lot of hitters in this system that can come up. And Alston Wells, I can't believe I just forgot his name. What are they going to do to him when he comes here? I'm terrified of what they're going to do to these kids when they call them up eventually, if they ever call them up.
Man, Volpe is one of the prospect that we all couldn't wait to see, and they've yankified the hell out of him, man. Like as I was saying, there's a hole in the swing, and they've not looked at it. His swing is different now than it was when he was first called up here to start the year. He was making contact when he was first called up here. He was making contact. He was getting on base. He was drawing walks. Now it looks like they're telling him at 2 strikes, swing out of your frickin' shoes. And what's it doing? Leading to strikeouts. And nothing's being fixed. Nothing's being looked at. And I'm absolutely certain that they've done something with his swing. Certain of it. If scouts think that, then there's a pretty good sign that that's probably what's happened. And that's what terrifies me, man. The Yankees do this with all their prospects, and they've done it with really good ones. Like you mentioned Gary Sanchez, man. Gary Sanchez was not the joke that he became when he first was called up. What did the world's very first DH say, Ron Blomberg? He said the best prospect that he'd seen was, in fact, Gary Sanchez because he was able to hit to all fields. But as soon as the Yankees got a hold of them, they Yankified him, and he was only a pull hitter. And then suddenly
everything went downhill.
It took 2/3 of his batting average off him, and suddenly he couldn't hit routine fastballs down the middle of the plate. And look at what we're seeing with Josh Donaldson. Look what we're seeing with Anthony Volpe. Routine fastballs down the middle of the plate. They're missing out of their shoes. I'm telling you, this is a Yankee organizational philosophy thing. No one can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, because you have a situation where they've adjusted the rule. The theory with kind of trying to, with the launch angle, lift the ball, hit the ball over their heads because of the shift. Right? Nobody wanted to adjust their swing to hit to all fields, unless you were that, rare player that was just able to do that, like a LeMahieu. Or even Torres and Sanchez, when they came up, were able to hit with authority to all areas. Then they got rid of the shift this year, and they're still trying to hit it over everybody's head. Meanwhile, you have the gaps in the infield. All you got to do is hit it with enough velocity, and the infielders are very rarely going to catch up to it. So the Yankees are still stuck in this stupid mindset that, the analytics say that you'll get less outs if you're able to elevate the ball, and just hope that it goes out of the park. It's a stupid philosophy. It's not freaking working anymore. And his comment, I want to go back to the comment from Cashman real quick, because I want to get into the pitching with Peraza, that he's not ready. What else do I'll even put Florial into this conversation for LI's sake. What more do these players need to do that they would hurt this team? Are they playing that badly that they'll hurt the team if they get called up? No, they would be an asset to this team right now. We have no outfield defense, to work with Bader now that he's back. Before Bader, we had no outfield defense. When you have Bader out, you have Judge out. You're afraid to even let Stanton put his foot on the field. What are your options? You have Florial. You have Judge out for a significant amount of time. Give Florial left field. Let him just stay out there. Let him figure it out. When Judge comes back, you can see where you are. But why not use Florial? You're gonna say that Peraza still needs more needs to work on some what? What does he need to work
Cashman's ego, that's why. Because he DFA'd Florial.
Fuck his ego. Seriously.
I know that, but this is Cashman's ego we're talking about. He DFA'd Florial. If he brought him back, and then suddenly he started absolutely ruining the ball, then Cashman's going to look like a complete idiot for DFAing him in the first place, right? So he's going to much prefer a lightning in a bottle journeyman, never has been, to be the guy that's going to be the savior, because it makes Cashman look smarter, right? And this whole Peraza thing, imagine if he DFA'd Josh Donaldson, which every other general manager in baseball would do right now. Imagine if they DFA'd him right now and then called up Peraza, right? Cashman looks like an idiot because he took on $50 million of Josh Donaldson's contract and he was shot, right? So what's Cashman's ego going to do? Oh, Cashman's ego is going to be, we're going to write it out with Josh Donaldson whether you like it or not, and Peraza is going to have to finish his development in AAA. Finish his development makes no sense. What development do you need to see? What more do you need to see? He's having a record-breaking year in AAA. He's playing a terrific third base, and he's already the best shortstop in the system. Yeah. There is absolutely no debate about any of that. But he's not the golden child. He's not Cashman's golden child, so he's going to be stuck in AAA until he's traded.
No, because
and if we don't trade him, then they're going to do exactly what they've done with all these other guys. He's going to give him a couple of at-bats, and then he's going to sit him for a week, and then do it again, and then sit him for a week, and then be shocked that he's not developing. Because that's what Brian Cashman's philosophy is. It's a failed philosophy. He's a failed joke of a general manager right now. He was good. He's bad now. Get him out of here, and I'm sick of it. And I'll tell you what, his interview last night was such a joke. It's such a joke. Why does he even talk anymore? He doesn't say anything. He just talks in circles. He talks in political speak. It's like the Iowa caucus. He's just like a politician. He doesn't answer a question. He doesn't answer the question that's asked to him. He answers another question that was never asked.
He should run for office. He really should. He's such a politician. And I think it's so fitting that the light just like shined on you as soon as you started ripping on Cashman. It's like the heavens have opened up. Here we go. You're absolutely right.
The Yankee gods have been like, thank you for talking the truth.
You're absolutely right, though. And again, we're talking about this coming off of a win, but we just can't help but complain about this. And I said this on Monday's show. This goes back to a question earlier. I think Jonathan said, who's the left fielder moving forward? It should be Florial right now. Why not? What do you have to lose? Willie Calhoun? You're not even playing him. You're playing Bowers every day, and you're leading him off for crying out loud. The guy's hitting, and then he's not hitting, and then he's hitting, and he's not hitting. Why? Why not try something different? You're not going to – no one's going to be like, I can't believe they just DFA'd Willie Calhoun. I can't believe – what are you – no one's calling into the Michael K show, but like, can you believe they just DFA'd Donaldson? It's not happening. It's not happening. We're going to be celebrating. No one misses Aaron Hicks, despite the fact that he went to Baltimore and he's killing it. He was so bad for us, and it looked like he just gave up on everything that we wanted him gone. And they made that move. And they got to pay him for another 3 years. With Donaldson, you got to pay him for another year after this. And I don't think the money is nearly as much because of that mutual option next year. But why are you holding on to this hope that he can unlock something that he had from 2-3 years ago? When he's 37, he can't catch up to a fastball. He's a detriment to your lineup. Why not? You let Volpe struggle from the start of the season till now. You're letting him struggle and work through it at the major league level, despite your system being flawed. Do the same with Peraza. Let him come up here and work on his development here. Let Florial see if what he's doing in the minors right now can translate at some rate to major league level. He's not going to be a 1,000 OPS player here, but even if he's like a 750 at the major league level, which is below league average, I believe, but it's still better than what we're getting from majority of our offense right now. Why not give it a shot? What do you have to lose? We're losing a lot of games. We won yesterday because of our ace being on the mound.
Yep.
What do you have to lose? That's my only question is why are we not doing things that other teams are doing? The Cincinnati Reds are in first place. They're in first place right now. They're exciting to watch because they're letting these kids play and they're just letting them play their game. What you did to get here, they didn't touch anything Ellie De La Cruz did at the minor league level. He's doing the exact same stuff and he's killing it right now for Cincinnati. Pittsburgh was red hot until they've gone cold. They actually fell to third place, I think. Look at Arizona. No one thought they'd be in first place.
Baltimore.
Right. Look at the only division in baseball where you can say a team, there's just no good teams, is the AL Central. But there's exciting teams to watch. San Francisco's playing great right now. And even if their offseason went as badly as it could, missing out on 2 players, they're still right there with Arizona. And that
the
division.
Yankees are.
Yeah. So, like, why can't we just be like, look, what we're doing right now isn't working. Let's try something different. How can a 25-year-old outfielder, who's an actual outfielder, by the way, and a 23-year-old infielder who can play everywhere but first, how are they going to hurt this team? How? Because it's already being hurt by using guys like Calhoun and Bowers and Donaldson and IKF every single day. Try something. That's my only – I'm just begging them. Just please try it. We're not asking you to reinvent the wheel here. Cutting Josh Donaldson and Willie Calhoun should not be these head scratching. Can we do it? Can we really do it? Should we? I don't know. It's like remember you trade baseball cards. I don't really want to give up this Tino Martinez, but I really want that, I don't know, Bernie card, whatever. Just throwing 2 names out there. We're not trading generational talent for prospects here. We're getting rid of a past his prime Josh Donaldson and a journeyman, former top prospect, mediocre hitter, average, bad defender overall in Willie Calhoun. And you can keep Bowers and McKinney on the roster. And then when Judge comes back, you have another decision to make. Which one of those 2 do you let go? Try something different. That's all I'm asking.
No, because
I've got a couple of videos of Brian Cashman.
Yeah.
Let's start with this one. Brian Cashman asked if he was happy with the Yankees' offensive approach.
Collectively, have you been okay with the approaches offensively?
I think that when you are struggling, you search for a lot, you tinker a lot. Sometimes you double down, triple down until you can get through it. But that's where trying, I think, as your support group, your manager, your coaches, the level-headed side of this thing is that much more important. Experience does matter. It's not their first rodeo, meaning our, veteran hitters. So they understand the ebbs and flow of the game and how difficult it can be. And so, am I happy with their approach? I'm happy with their commitment. I'm happy with their care. And ultimately, I know I'll be happy with their end result.
All right. You can't even call them out. Are you happy with their approach? No, I'm not. They are not doing what I'm paying them to fucking do. Seriously?
Are you happy with their approach? I'm happy with their care.
This guy
What does
really
that even mean?
apologized.
That's not an answer.
And
I didn't
get the
ask
fuck out of
if you
baseball.
like their care. Well, that's not the question.
Oh my God.
That wasn't the question. The question wasn't, do you like their care? The question was, you like their approach? And if he liked their approach, he would have said that. But he wasn't, obviously, but he doesn't want to answer that question because then it's going to make him look bad because it's all about him anyway. So, I really like their care and their effort. What does that even mean? They're 300 million ball players. Of course they should care.
Oh my God! Well, that's what I was going to make this point before you played the audio was, you Rob was saying how, we have these guys up here, there's nothing more that they're going to do down. The only thing that they're going to do if they get called up is damage Cashman's ego. Like you said, Donald, it's all about his ego. It's not about the team's success.
No.
Look, as a GM, from the owner's point of view, he's the cream of the crop. He makes that team a lot of freaking money. When you're looking at his job from the fan point of view, he's middle of the pack. And then some points of the fan base, they might say towards the bottom. But he just keeps burying himself constantly. I just don't freaking get it. I really don't. He makes absolutely. He could take, anything, and he could take a cesspool and make it, and really make it even worse.
Yep.
That's just how bad it is. He could turn shit even to more shit every time he opens his fucking mouth. I just don't want to fucking hear him anymore. I don't want to hear all these fucking excuses about how you got to do this. Oh, our team got, a team could, tonight we could lose in a perfect game. Well, we got some competitive at bats, and our approach. At least they showed up to the ballpark. No,
yeah, they showed up.
That would be their fucking response to being no hit. We put together some good. It's going to be the same fucking rinse and repeat.
Bro, what did Aaron Boone say after he got swept by Boston? He said, we're actually playing really well. Are you kidding me? They gave up like 30 runs and couldn't score, and they were throwing the ball all over the ballpark. Bro, we're playing really well.
You got your ass torn open in game one, but you played a good series. I mean, come on. Are they watching these fucking games? Or are they just sitting there collecting their fucking checks?
Oh, and that's our support group. That's the support group that Cashman was talking about.
Yeah,
That's
support group. Bullshit.
That's our support group. This is why, I will never say Cashman's a bottom 5 GM or one of the worst in baseball. He's not the worst in baseball because despite all of his flaws, his team does have a winning record every single year. A bad GM doesn't do that. But the time to move on from him was years ago already. Years ago. We were talking about this since we started this show. We should probably think about moving on from Brian Cashman because the end goal for this team is World Series championships. We haven't been able to get there. We haven't been able to sniff one for quite some time now. And a lot of it is because of the moves that he is making or failing to make. Players that he could be bringing in, and this payroll would still be where it is right now had he made a couple of moves that he didn't make. And his failure to trade players when they need to be traded or call guys up and leave and develop players the right way. He does have there. If he, I will say this, if he got let go, someone would scoop him up because there are teams that would probably bring him in thinking, okay, well, do what you did with the Yankees, but it probably wouldn't work very well. But the game has passed him by. is someone who just said it in the chat. Someone, Medina.
Shout
Yeah,
out Medina.
the game has passed him by. He needs to. The Yankees need a fresh face in there. They need They need a younger mind. They don't need to get an ancient guy that needs to go back to batting averages, everything. But they need a fresh mind. It's a team that's all in on analytics. Yet you have a relic as a GM that thinks he knows about analytics. We have the freaking biggest analytic team in baseball, and we don't use them correctly. We're bringing in the worst possible players. We're changing everybody's swing. We got 2 more GMs to join him this offseason, and the same thing is happening. So we still got to do this for another 3 years, though. Another 3 years after this season, we still got to deal with this. So as much as that we want to complain, they're not going to fire him. They're not going to fire Aaron Boone. None of these guys are going. So unless Brian Cashman really
everything you mentioned, so every aspect of a general manager in terms of trading when they need to be traded, developing the right guys, a right offensive philosophy, making the right trades, making the right signings. He's failed in every single aspect over the last 3-4 years. Every single aspect he's failed at. So, I mean, he's pretty much failed at his job requirements. He's doing a terrible, terrible job. This is an awful roster. For $300 million, it is a pathetic attempt at a roster.
Yep.
Here's Brian Cashman on Josh Donaldson.
Donaldson, he struggled last year as well. What makes you think he's still an impact bat if he is getting those consistent at-bats?
Well, I'd like to get him some really consistent at-bats before we try to assess what's going on. Obviously, last year he had a subpar offensive season, but prior to that, he's always been an above-average offensive player. This year, obviously, he got out of the gates, I thought looking good, and then he got hurt, and then he re-aggravated his injury. So he's been down for a long period of time. So I'd like to get him some runway here where he gets some consistent bats and then get on a roll and be in a better position to judge.
What does that even mean, man? I mean, giving him consistent at bats, he had all last year, and he didn't start well. He was batting 100 when he got hurt. Like he hit a couple of home runs, but like every other metric, he was lost. So I mean, I don't know what he's talking about giving him consistent at bats. That's just another excuse. And what is very noticeable is I don't understand why Cashman spoke yesterday. Because he said nothing. Not one point did he say, you know what? These results are very disappointing. We're not going to rely on Aaron Judge. We're gonna look internally to see how we can fix things. Right? That is what any normal human being would say when things are going wrong. But he's like, no, I like it. I like our care. I like our commitment. I like this. And they're just going to magically turn it around because I ain't doing nothing. And he's been saying it. He's been saying it for years now. Every offseason, makes excuses. I'm not doing anything. These guys are going to turn it around. And it's every single time he talks, it's the same thing. And the only difference is that he looks less convinced. He didn't even look convinced yesterday. He looked tired. He looked exhausted. He looked drained. And he looked like he wasn't even buying his own bullshit. Because I certainly didn't buy it. I don't know if anyone else in the chat bought it. I don't think anyone here buys it.
Buying it.
Well, he was hitting like 125. What does he mean by he looked good at the start? He looked good in game 1, and then he got hurt after the first. I think it took him like 5 games. He was hitting 120. I'm looking at on base was 176. That's good, right? That's good.
It's better.
Yeah, it's better than 175. Sure. Ah, that's fine. He looked good. He looked fine. Then he came back and he's hit home runs in games that we've lost. And other than that, he hasn't had anything else. Nah, he needs consistent at bat. So he doesn't. He doesn't. And has Josh Donaldson had a good career? Sure. Absolutely. He's won an MVP. Not as a Yankee, but he's won an MVP. He's had some big seasons. He's had some big moments wherever he's been. He's also been a locker room cancer in a lot of places. He's also the reason why you were not able to pick up players to bigger contracts these last couple of years, because he was your big move 2 years ago, adding his $25 million for the next 2 seasons. He was it to me, that is the worst trade in this current generation of Yankees. I can't go all the way back to when I wasn't watching. But since I've been watching baseball, this has to be the worst trade I've ever seen. It has to be.
Without question.
And it's preventing you from doing so much. And you're still trying to hold on to that sliver of hope that from now until September, maybe into the playoffs, that he can possibly turn it around. When last year he proved to you that he couldn't. This year he's proven the exact same thing. He can't make contact. When he does, he's dribbling weak ground outs. He'll hit you the occasional home run. But if that was the case, then you should have just kept Joey freaking Gallo, because he would have cost you half of what Josh Donaldson's costing you. He is worse than Joey Gallo at this point. That's how bad it is. He's worse than Joey Gallo. Gallo might be hitting below 200, but his on base is over 300. His slugging is where it usually is. He's hitting for power. He's doing what he usually does. What's Josh Donaldson doing? Hitting 160, 150. On base is 2-something. No slugging. No OPS is low. He has the occasional home run. Never comes up in a big spot. Never. And he plays a good third base. But he had a subpar offensive season last year. And yet you're still letting this guy, you're still saying he needs consistent at-bats. He's not a 21-year-old prospect. He's a 37-year-old past his prime, washed-up third baseman. And he needs consistent at-bats? No. Anthony Volpe needs consistent at-bats. Oswald Peraza needs consistent at-bats. Estevan Florial needs consistent at-bats. Josh Donaldson does not. Enough is enough. Stop doing the same old tired thing that has prevented you from winning championships the past decade plus. Change it up, please. It starts with him. You took step one was getting Aaron Hicks off this team, despite the fact that he's playing well now. Get Donaldson out of here, and let's trust Oswald Peraza. For once, let's just do what every other team in baseball would do and go with the frickin' youth at a position of need to replace a player who's old and is not helping you win.
Doesn't that remind you of 2015 and 2014 and 2013? That period where all Brian Cashman did was bring in dudes that are well past their best, that had a big name, that have not hit in a couple of years. He brings them in to the Yankees expecting that they're going to magically turn around to their prime years. He's been doing this for years. This has been a Brian Cashman thing. This is not just solely for right now. This is what he's been doing for the last decade, right? The only time that he was a competent general manager was that time where he actually put together the 2017 year.
Yep.
That was the one time that he was fully competent and he was doing a really good job. But prior to that, he was bringing Lyle Oberbay and all these other dudes, and it was a whole bunch of retreads. We had a whole ton of retreads. You guys know it. We were watching a whole ton of retreads for years with a top payroll. And he's gone back to that. He's gone back to it again. It's a failed idea that you ignore your prospects and you play dudes that are journeymen in their 30s and expect them to magically make this team good because they're going to play to the back of their baseball cards. That doesn't exist. Sometimes if you're plus 30, you are just toast and you're not going to get it back. And it takes a good general manager to figure that out. But he's not figured it out in years because he keeps making the same mistakes over and over and over again. You might as well develop with your young guys. You might as well. Yeah, Volpe should definitely develop. That's the one thing I agree with him in. But only if he's doing the right things. If he's got the right habits, then fine. But I'm not seeing him with the right habits right now.
No,
I don't think the Yankees are working on him. So, again, it speaks to Brian Cashman. I'm so done with him.
No, the problem with the issue, I don't want to say the problem. The issue with Volpe is the fact that everybody else sucks right now. So it just if he was sitting in the 8th or the 9th spot where everybody was doing, hitting to their baseball card, while Volpe was trying to figure out where he fits into the mold, and was able to, get his walks, because that's, you're talking about his strikeouts being up, his walks are way down, which usually go hand in hand. If he was able to get on base more and utilize his speed around the other hot bats of the order, we wouldn't be looking at his batting average. We'd be like, all right, he's hitting around 200, but he's not hurt. His at bats are not hurting the momentum. Everybody in this lineup is affecting the momentum of the rotation. They're all they're all so outside of their own heads that they can't focus anymore, and that's been a problem. Because you took one guy out of a lineup, everything else has to collapse. What does that tell you about the leadership on this team? What does that tell you about the manager and how he gets these guys motivated? He can't. He can't get them motivated because he doesn't have his own voice. He's going to go to Cashman. All right, what do you want me to tell them? All right, what do I say to these guys? All right, here's what I want you to say.
Exactly. That's not a real leader.
But
But for our last 5 minutes before people will tune into Pete Seminetti's show, most likely, Tats, tell us about your thoughts on the pitching, because the pitching was really, really good.
The pitching was phenomenal. I thought that if it wasn't for a couple of misplays on the defense, Cole finishes that game. He goes to complete. The defense unfortunately had him throw to 3 extra batters where he had to throw some extra pitches. Giving up extra outs never hurts. No, never helps, but having Cole on the mound helps. There we go. So, I think Cole was the ace that we needed last night after the road trip. We needed the bullpen to get some rest. And when you're able to get a win, in a low-scoring game with 2 pitchers between Cole and Holmes says everything that we needed to happen, what we needed to go right yesterday did. Our ace was our ace, and our closer didn't just have 3 outs to get; he got 5 outs on that save. So they were so locked in. There's not one thing I can complain about with the pitching.
Rob?
I'm actually more impressed with Clay Holmes than I was with Garrett Cole. Because I expect this from Garrett Cole. He's been the stopper. That's the term whenever you lose and Garrett Cole starts. The Yankees have won. I think he's 7-0 this year, following a loss or something like that. I don't know. His record's really good though. When usually
8-1 record overall, I think.
Yeah, I think 7 of his wins have come after a loss, which is kind of telling. But that's what you need an ace to do. You need him to shut down. Seattle's struggling this year, but they still got a lot of decent hitters in that team, and we needed Garrett Cole to be Garrett Cole, and he did exactly what he does most of the time after a loss. He just puts all the stops together and gets you a good ball game, and we won a ball game. But Clay Holmes has been really good over his last 20 innings or so.
Yeah,
so I think that's very important. They're going back to him in the 9th inning as the closer again, which could go either really well or terribly wrong. But lately it's been going pretty well because he's been getting you out of games. He's been getting you saves. So I think that's a really good sign. To me, as good as Cole was, and he was phenomenal, it's very, very big that Clay Holmes is seemingly, and I want to knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but he's over his last 20 appearances, whatever it's been, he's looked a hell of a lot better, and that is so important because as good as his bullpen is, Clay Holmes has to be good. He has to be good because that's the guy they trust the most in the 9th inning. Even though he has given them reason to not trust him, but he has given them reason to trust him again. I think that's huge.
Yeah. Garrett Cole's just a monster, man. I mean, he's the Cy Young as far as I'm concerned. He's the best pitcher in the American League this year. And I don't think it's close because of what's being asked of him. This is a broken team. It's a broken roster, and he's getting no run support, and he's delivering us an 8-1 record with a 2.70 ERA. I mean, that just says it all. He's a monster, absolute monster, with incredible pressure on his shoulders. This is a guy that basically has to pitch shutout ball. It's kind of like when DeGrom was pitching great for the Mets, when he was having to pitch complete game shutouts just to keep them in games. And Garrett Cole isn't that far off, man. It's just he's getting no run support. He got 3, which is massive for the Yankees these days, and it was enough because Garrett Cole's a monster. He's a beast. He's got that attitude on the mound. You saw him when he was wagging the finger after the strikeout. He's reminding me of CeCe in 2009, that kind of larger-than-life figure and presence on the mound. There's an absolute baller competitor. I will never complain about Garrett Cole, man. I just feel terrible for him that we've got 2 generational players in Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, and our horrific general manager and substandard manager has managed to not put together a team that they can win with. But anyway, that's obviously a fact at this point. But congratulations to Garrett Cole. He's an absolute beast.
Yep, and that is going to be how we close out today's show. Just remember to hit that like button, share this video out, and of course, make sure you are subscribed. Tell all your friends about it, because when it comes to needing a support system, there is no better support system than the YouTube Yankee streaming channels with us, Morning Brew Sports, NYY News, The Shift, Fort Trade Express. The list goes on and on. You know where we all are. So just remember, as always, wear your pinstripes of pride and play hard.
Thanks, guys.